Welcome, everybody, to Friday Drinks. As always, we've got an interesting guest, but we also have Ruvaro, whom I haven't seen in, it feels like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I haven't seen you in a while. Yeah.
Weren't you on the show last week?
No, you guys were at ZSC.
Oh, yeah, you absconded.
No, I did not abscond.
Yes, you did. But anyway,
you guys moved dates and all sorts. And, some of us are proper. And
really? That's your story and you're sticking to it?
I think so. And that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
But we've got a special guest, Kura, who is partaking in a Johnny Walker. Is that courtesy of Ruvaro, or that's what you brought to the show?
I was kindly hosted. I was told coming for drinks and what would you like. So being a good host, he seems to be a well-educated young man. So he's catered to the guest need.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, and it's actually a walker.
It's a walker. So just trying to appeal to a younger demographic. Yeah. People don't believe I'm 53-year-old with a cap and the cool look and the J's. So I said, no, let me just do a Johnny Walker just to speak to the youthies so that they can also have a Johnny, which is not a crazy price point. Feel free to mix it. Be free. Enjoy life.
Yeah, it's actually made for mixing. Can you believe that? Which we think,
that's
like us, but conservative aficionados feel like that's sacrilege. But I've got a flu, so my palate is not going to protest.
Oh, do you?
Yes.
Okay, what happened to you?
I was exposed to you and Ranga.
Wow.
But to be fair, I actually thought you were 21, 22.
Indeed. With inflation and VAT and CGT, yes.
You're in the right country then. But thank you very much for joining us. I'm really looking forward to this. I do thoroughly enjoy your videos on X.
Thank you very much.
It's just fantastic. And I remember watching you, and I think you should have been back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And you were on a TV program. A property program, South African property program. What was it called?
I did a couple, but the big one was Ask the Property Experts.
Yes, on DSTV, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
But then I went into the financial services as well. I did smart money, new retirement thinking. Yeah, but always talking about money.
You've been around the block.
Yeah. Again, when I say I've got 15 years of broadcast experience, people say, where did you get 15 years? But this was...
So this is very comfortable for you, eh?
Yes,
it's new media. So tell us actually, what do you think of this new media, YouTube and everything that's happening, podcasts, this sort of thing? We're new to this.
I am totally inspired by my young son, Kwayedza, 20 years old, doing a BCom at AFTA in Johannesburg. Yeah. So he's a native with the camera, with the mic, with editing and mixing, and he's showing me life. So he's my social media manager, keeps me on my toes. He does amazing stuff, and you've got a voice.
That's Trump and Barron, right?
Yep. Oh wow. Is this where we're starting the level of the convo, bruh? Huh? That's not very nice. That's not very nice.
That's our reference point.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I completely agree. Look, the new media, we are the media now. I think if you look at legacy media, it's dying. The data, it tells us that their viewership is literally falling off a cliff. It doesn't help that they've, been really brazen with some of their agendas, and they've lost the public's trust. So if you want to hear the expert, you don't go to legacy media anymore. You actually just, if a property expert has a channel, you get it direct from the horse's mouth, unfiltered.
The unfiltered.
And, that's the way. So what? Okay.
I'm actually going to have a Mazoe.
This is the boring corner.
No. Free choices.
Quintessential. It's the quintessential Zimbabwean drink, Mazoe. And the producer's going to hate me for this, for putting it here. Maybe I need to take it apart because I don't want to get into crosshairs with Ranga. He gets apoplectic around these issues. So I'm going to be decent. We do have a guest, so I'm going to be decent.
Okay.
And yeah.
Please feel free to open up and pass the bottle.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about this particular Johnny Walker.
Okay, so I'm a routines guy, and the older you get, the more your routines are established. And there's a monk who's on Twitter, and he's always, or TikTok, and says, just set your life up. Only the disciplined are free. So on Sunday, I love nothing better than getting my Sunday newspapers, laying them out on the table, having cooked something nice to eat, and reading the papers and having a little tipple. sometimes wine, sometimes Johnny, but just something that's relaxing in a home environment, listening oddly enough to Xhosa love songs. I don't know why, but
I think it has something to do with the Xhosa girl somewhere out there.
This is not that kind of station, isn't it? Come on now. We ain't
Friday
doing that.
drinks.
We ain't talking that like that.
It's Friday drinks.
Sure. If I could be blessed with a bit of ice, I'd be most grateful.
Yes, the ice was actually for the guests, not for you, Tinashe.
Okay.
So
I don't feel special anymore.
House of Johnny, just standard easy drinking whiskey. The price points are not crazy. You're not going to feel like a rock star. You don't get it served to you with bottle service if you're in the club. So it's just the Zambezi of whiskey. And
What does that mean? The Zambezi of whiskey.
a stock standard, reliable go-to. It is what it is, and no surprises. No surprises. Okay.
And what do you like? What do you like about it?
I've never tried it. I mean, the idea that a whiskey that's made for mixing is paradoxical to me, because you're supposed to just enjoy, in the world of aficionados, you're supposed to actually enjoy the whiskey either neat with a little bit of water. Ice is sacrilegious to some extent, but look, I
beg to differ, sir. I beg to differ.
I'm not going to judge Kura too harshly.
Okay.
I'm going to humor him, and
do we do that? Tomboti.
Why not? Okay. But look, I love the Johnny Walker story. I think it's that they were actually just grocers, right, who used to buy whiskeys from.
How would I know it, and why would I know it?
Well, it's an interesting entrepreneurial story, so you might know it from that perspective, not because you're interested in whiskey at all. But they were,
go ahead, please tell us.
They were grocers, and they used to basically buy barrels from various distilleries and then mix them and bottle them and then sell them. And they were actually so successful with this part of their business that now the name Johnny Walker is a household name in the world of Scotch whiskey, and some of the best-selling whiskies in the world are from Johnny Walker. So they've done incredibly well.
Okay, you want some other random trivia?
Yeah, sure.
You know why the bottle label is at an angle?
No, absolutely.
So they can make the font. So they can make the font bigger. Do you know why the bottles are square? So they can fit more in a case to transport. So everything is done deliberately and scientifically, and it's I think the second best-selling whiskey house in the world. I think Jameson is number one, but it does the job. You can go anywhere in the world. I've been in a bar in Singapore, and you can ask for a Johnny, and out it comes, mother's milk, firm and familiar.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound right. Firm and familiar.
Oh my gosh, where did your mind go? Please pass the bottle.
Just doesn't sound right. But anyway, gentlemen, this is what happens when you are at a bar with two drunkards and they've had one too many to drink. But anyway, let's get into the show. Thank you very much for joining us. And I think the real estate is something that we're seeing a lot of in Harare. Maybe just give us a backstory on why is it we've seen a lot of action, a lot of activity in Harare in the last 5 years, and not in the last 20 years or 25 years, but particularly after COVID, we've seen a lot of activity. Where is that activity coming from, and what exactly is it all about?
I think it marks the high water mark in the use and confidence in the US DORA. For people to be able to import anything from anywhere in the world, China, Turkey, Singapore, South Africa, and people can use hard currency to import, sell at a margin, and then buy stock, they're doing that. And it's been a long stretch, and post-COVID, people want to ensconce in their homes, so they want nice things. We're on social media, we're seeing the latest thing it's available on Amazon. Amazon is opened up in SA. So I think we've just got avaricistic appetites to take on new things, and it's available. And then once a good needs to get to you, goods don't fly from outer space. They need to go through a distribution center like a warehouse. There may be somebody who's got a niche. I was at some of our beloved Harare malls, where you've got so many varieties of hair and hair pieces and hairstyles. All of that needs a display place. You've got the Zimbabwean entrepreneur who's not grafting. So somebody gets a 9 square meter shop, buys hair down in South Africa, and then flogs them up here. So we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing developments of nodes like, and I've been corrected 13 times, Highland singular park, Highland Park as a shopping center, green fields, where there's an opportunity where people have seen there's a demand for an upmarket product in an environment that has not seen great new retail development. A lot promised, but very little delivered. I remember in the 2010s, 2015s, there were malls promised on Harare Drive by Art Farm, Millennium by Samora Machel opposite Tendaseka Park. There were a number of them. Mall of Zimbabwe is still in gestation to be delivered by West Prop. So there was a hype. Once we got dollars into the economy, people could see to buy, stock, sell at a margin, and restock.
In other words, are you saying that property is the new Chihota? Where everybody is doing exactly the same thing, where everybody who has a piece of land, they're subdividing. Everybody who has commercial property, they're also cutting it into little outlets.
Not everybody, sadly. If you look at the gross asset value that's described in the IPEC pensions report, and you look at the value of assets that are there, and then you look at the rental that those assets attract, we're getting 3.7% in pension funds as a return. So the assets, I feel, are
Is
not
that the yield, annual yield?
That's the annual yield. Rent, and people always ask what the yield is. Yield is annual rent over the value of a property or the cost of a property.
Is that the gross yield or the net yield?
I do not know if the rent number is described explicitly in the report. I would imagine it's a gross number, and then there's some costs that are going to come up for that. But 4% on the billions of assets is not an acceptable number in my view. Okay, so not everybody is doing it, and not everybody is doing it correctly. Then I feel that a lot of Zimbabweans barge ahead in doing stuff property-wise. Instead of anywhere else in the world, if you're borrowing money, you've got a companion there and a safeguard. If I try and do a mall in South Africa, my bank is going to tell me, could I sign up 70% of the tenants, of which 70% are nationals, with a AAA credit rating on a 10-year lease basis, so that I've literally de-risked all of those cash flows to pay them back the money. In Zimbabwe, you and I, the Tinashe, Ranga, and Kura company, we can buy a stand on the side.
I like that.
And Tongo ita Zurum Solo
Tinashe, Kura, and Ranga company. I like that.
There you go.
Okay, all right.
You can start your own. But Rufar, you said something that's very interesting around the 3.75% yield on property that the pension funds are getting. But what's the yield on Delta and some of the listed companies? Just the dividend yield. I think Insco gives you a better return.
Yeah, well, Delta will give you close to 10%. Econet
Dividend
will give
yield.
you, Econet will give you.
So why is everybody still going into property? Why are the pension funds still going into property when, without getting any naked exposure, they can just go into Delta, they can go into Insco, a lot of the listed companies, not even for capital appreciation, but purely for the dividend yield? Why would you bother getting yourself into some sort of naked risk like that? Before Kura can respond to you, but I just want you to give us a bit of context as far as what the alternatives are out there.
So I think in terms of people who understand equities, there's some post-traumatic stress disorder there. So you had this.
It's real. It's real. Hyperinflation-induced trauma is a real thing.
You had this, I think 2021, you had, the regulators shut down the market for a month, and then, a lot of value, there's literally more than $400 million that is trapped in Old Mutual and PPC that's on the Zimbabwean register. That if you own Old Mutual shares, if you own PPC shares, and you paid real money for them, you can't get any value for them in any way, right? So there's, and a lot of the people who understand equities have exposure to Old Mutual and PPC, and then you had, until a few months ago, literally, these rules around vesting. So if you bought shares, you had to sit on them for at least 270 days. Otherwise, if you're on sale, you would suffer this very high capital gains tax. So this was real punishment that was meted out to equity market players, and notwithstanding promises that it's not going to happen again. People were traumatized, right? So
it is real, yeah.
So if you're out in the market and you find yourself in a position where you're allocating capital, equities is not going to be attractive if you've been burnt in the past. So what are your alternatives if you've got meaningful amounts of capital and you've reinvested in the businesses that you're involved in as much as you can? Where else can you store value? I think the National Mattress Bank is the biggest bank in our country, but it earns zero interest. And the truth of the matter is that even though we describe the US dollar as a hard currency, over long periods of time, you're actually losing material amounts of value. So,
okay. You might as well just store it in property.
So property becomes the solution, and then historically as well.
So not necessarily because you're chasing yield, but rather as just a store.
Yeah, you need to park value, and historically as well, for a lot of people in that space, you've been in a position where you can walk into a bank, give them your title deeds, borrow currency that, thanks to government profligacy, loses value, and then when you pay back your loan, it's a tiny fraction of what you borrowed up front.
Right. So just hold that thought, Kura. Thank you very much for giving us an idea around the yield. Then give us an idea of the capital appreciation in the property market over the last, let's call it 10 years, 20 years in Zimbabwe. What sort of capital appreciation have people enjoyed just over the market?
So there is life-changing money that has happened from your dad, my dad, working as civil servants and buying a house in Budiriro or Greendale or Hatfield, and then having a mortgage evaporate away. And then that asset now comes into a hard trading US dollar environment. That kind of money, we would never have seen it. You get a guy, literally, agents will tell you here, guys can pitch up with $300,000, $500,000 in blue notes, in a boot, and there you go, off you go. So that becomes a whole new economy of the circulation of money that we hadn't seen before. So a lot of people never got to realize equity out of their properties. Mom and dad would have paid the mortgage, they would have retired at 60, then they would have got their money from Beverly and gone. We didn't see that money. So we have seen a lot of energy released by people having title deeds. And the fluidity of our title deeds has really, to my mind, fueled a lot of the frenetic activity. I know you guys want to go in the bubble direction, but it's because there's money that people never thought they would see, and it's liquid and it needs to do something. And guess what? It can make a return. If you owned a property along Enterprise Road, or Idi Mnangagwa Road as is now known, you read the local development plan, somebody sold you a house, you can put up clusters. Somebody sold you a strip, you can put up La Parada in Mozambique. The returns, you have 3x your money by learning how to read a town planning scheme and what rights actually mean and what it confers on a piece of ground. Okay. And Bob's your uncle.
All right, okay. We'll get into the master plan just now. But so the idea for bubble, where it's coming from, because everything that you say, to me, it's more opportunistic So it's not market wide. It's these little pockets of value that are still there, and that you will always find in any market, right? So overall, people can tell you that, you know what, getting into the restaurant business is probably a bad idea because the margins are thin, but it does not necessarily negate the fact that you could start Three Monkeys, and which is an opportunistic play, and you can make money. But for every Three Monkeys that we see, there is, which used to be the best restaurant in Zimbabwe, the Butcher's Kitchen. What was it called? You know,
TBK. It was at Borrowdale Village where Netflix is now.
Exactly. Yeah. That used to be the best restaurant.
How much a bright pack was there? You'd get a country style boerewors, kapiske chicken, and a sirloin steak for $10, boss.
Can you believe that?
$10.
$10.
Try to do that at Chop now. Come and talk to me.
You see what I mean? So there's the good
old days.
The good old days.
Yeah.
You know. So what I'm trying to say is there's a graveyard of these opportunistic opportunities that never really realized. So everybody is always quick to point out the ones that do succeed. So they will tell you Three Monkeys, because Three Monkeys is there and it's doing phenomenally well. Therefore, the industry is doing well. Let me give you another example. Food lovers. Everybody is talking about what happened. And I'm sorry I'm using that as an example. And Sharon likes, you know, she's been posting, you know, lovely photos on
I'm a big fan of Food Lovers. Why are you apologetic?
Believe you me, I'm a big fan of Food Lovers. But the fact that there's one Food Lovers that has done well, and we forget that there are 9 Food Lovers that are dead and buried. And then people will use that one example say that.
Go deeper, man of God. Headline brand, operator. Those two are different. So just because it's called a Food Lovers doesn't mean it's a Food Lovers. And then you must look at what the horse is doing and who the jockey is and what his track records are. So we all support sport. It's who's your manager, who's your front line, what's the chemistry and what have you. So it's franchises in a services business. And if you look at my latest TikTok talking about Food Lovers, it's the service, it's the friendly smiles, it's the 21 tills that are open, it's never eco cash network, get it down, and then it's a fuss, right? You're like, I'm sorry, can we make an alternative? And they've hyped it up. When you walk in there, you've got the pink tree welcoming you. Sure, you're spending your very hard-earned dollar. Let's treat you well. Come in, have a bit of a Budiriro, grab a little coffee on the side. We've packaged stuff for you. We have thought of the time-stressed mom who is taking hell from her boss at work. She's getting hell through traffic, getting through Borrowdale and Harare Drive, and then she gets home and we've actually peeled the vegetables for her. So she can put it in the
fantastic.
pot, and then she can serve it up to her. That's what you're paying for. And that is a retailer who has thought end customer and pulled it backwards to say, how do I maximize this thing? It's not, I've sent a truck to Mbari and I've got vegetables and I can put it on a shelf. It's a value add, and it's psychosomatic issues that are going around there to envelop human beings.
I totally buy into that, because what you're speaking to is management expertise, that they're really good at the game, they know what to do. But I'm cautioning the idea of using that as an example of how property does phenomenally well. And yet you forget
the Bundu goals.
Exactly.
that blew up and lost people money.
And then we say, oh, look, they're expanding, so there goes the industry. And not necessarily, well, this had to do with the peculiarity of that particular management, and very opportunistic. They're very good at what they do, but it doesn't speak to the industry. So the reason why we have you here on the show is we want you to give us and to speak to the industry. This whole idea, and sorry, gentlemen, I get really passionate about this for a particular reason, because I think we need to, I went to Chitungwiza for a funeral, and I hadn't gone to Chitungwiza for a while, and they were open sewers. It was disgusting. And the level of degradation as far as property is concerned is nowhere near what you see on Enterprise Road or Emerson Mnangagwa Road, right? So I take your point. I take everybody's point that look at what's happening north of Harare. Look at the clusters that are going up. But that's just really 0.1% of the population. If you go to Budiriro and you see the infrastructure, if you go to Warren Park, when we grew up, Warren Park was a normal, decent neighborhood, it's not decent anymore. If you go to Chitungwiza, Seke, it's not decent anymore. So why is it we're so particularly aggressive about telling us this story of the Highland Park, of the clusters that are going up, and yet we forget what's actually happening in Budiriro, in Lombotombo, in every one of those, where the majority of people actually live, where the infrastructure is dilapidated and the property there are not speaking to this property boom.
Okay, I think you may have a perception issue. Let's get
Help me, Papa. Help me, Papa.
Yeah, let's get out. Let's have a look. I just dashed back into Harare now. I was in Chivu just now. Mm-hmm. There are my malls, the beloved malls that are going on there. I've been down to Chiredzi. I've been in Marondera. Look at Marondera over the past 10 years. Pick and Pay, a Spa, a Bon Marché, all new complexes responding to a market demand. What's that market demand? And I won't argue with you about infrastructure falling apart, because remember, these were not our cities. They were never planned for us. They were never planned for this kind of density. Isusu, we've superimposed all sorts of conditions on top of something that was planned to be exclusive, divisionary, and keep the blacks a safe distance away. A favorite point I always tell people is Harare South. It's the reason why it's called south of Samora. It's the reason there's a hard physical barrier. The railway goes east-west, and for you to come from Chitungwiza, you're supposed to pass under the flyover. That let the BSAP be able to open the taps when they need darkies to come in from the dormitory town and close the taps. If we haven't outthought them to say to come from south of Harare, from Chitungwiza, you've got Chitungwiza Highway, Seke Road, or you can come via Chiremba, and maybe round Umtare Road. That's it. 3 choke points. So that's the city that we inherited. And that inheritance creates the problems that we live with now, because we've liberalized Munuese. Every civil servant can add Chita Majet. He can get a duty-free Honda Fit. Traffic that we never imagined is impacting on us. So I challenge you to say, despite that, and due to the resilience of Zimbabweanness, Tawanaka gap. And Kuwanaka gap is to provide physical infrastructure that can produce a revenue that can look after me. Because you guys, and I'm putting it on you guys, financial services guys, pension funds, asset managers, you've done me and my family a disservice. The money that I was thinking of my parents when I started working and turned 18 and bought an old mutual policy, y'all giving me nothing. So I've had to take it upon myself to buy a stand, to convert a flat in the CBD and put in a pharmacy. So property is a traumatic response to say, how do I shorten and disintermediate from these dudes who charge crazy fees and live a Lani lifestyle and do podcasts and all the rest of it? I want to see my money, and I'm taking charge of it. If it's my core room if it's my core house in Warren Park, that I can go and get a little micro mortgage, my rooms, then I bring in that wonderful creature in Zimbabwe.
An inheritance I can pass down to.
The beloved thing, a lodger is a balancing figure in Zimbabwe. We've got property, my rooms and it's 70, 80, 90, 100 bucks. If some crazy SI comes up, the balancing figure, the person you're going to oppress is the guy who you've got, but it's a direct cash flow without the intermediation of you financial guys who I no longer trust.
There you go. That's directed at you. That's a jab.
Well, it's not. Well, look, I think it's unfortunate that that narrative is out there and is actually quite popular. The truth of the matter is that the primary destroyer of value was not the asset manager or the pension fund. It was the government via hyperinflation. That's basically what happens. Hyperinflation fundamentally is a transfer of wealth from people with bank balances and savings to the government. And but it's not intuitive. It's not obvious. And obviously, if you have the guilty party making the case that it's actually the Tinashes and Rangas of this world who are responsible for this.
Definitely sideswept. I see you sidestepping.
Then, it doesn't matter how mendacious it is. A whole bunch of people are going to believe this, right? And that's just sadly where we are today, where that's the narrative. It's the bankers are not to be trusted. But meanwhile, the real villain is the state.
I didn't give the state my money.
Exactly.
I paid it into an account and I've got the receipts, boss. So that's why I come for you, and that's what everybody believes. Kudichi, Mari Nzedu Zakeno to these people. It's not this amorphous state thing that lives over there. It is real human beings who came and pitched my boss and said, we can put your money into this pension fund at these contributions, and off the money went. I gave up very real dollars into annuity funds.
Where I will have lots of empathy for what you're saying, and I think as an industry we're for sure culpable, right, is at the material hour when everybody in financial services, whether you were on the pension fund administration side, whether you were on the commercial banking side, whether you were in the capital markets, either as on the sell side in stockbroking or on the buy side in asset management, at the material time when we all should have been singing from the same hymn sheet to say, look, guys, there's epic value destruction that's happening, and this is what's going to happen. There were some voices. There was certainly people put their hands up and spoke about this for sure. But I think there was never a universal rallying cry to say, look, guys, this. There's a tsunami of value destruction that's going to happen. Okay. So if you think about it in the context of the industry associations, you won't find a statement going back to 2007 or 6 or 5 where they all said, look, guys, there's this, we're driving in, we're about to drive off a cliff, and we all need to be concerned about this. So I think there was certainly lack of courage, because everybody knew, all of the professionals knew what was going on, but they didn't speak out as aggressively as they should have.
I think one thing that you've convinced me, Kura, and thanks to you, because I think it's now very clear to me that it's not, guys going into property is not a financial play. It's no coincidence that it happened post 2019. It's a traumatic response to hyperinflation. And if you look at the markers over the last 20 years, is where the first hyperinflation was 2008, but the second hyperinflation that people have forgotten about, it happened in 2019. Where there was again another change in currency. So you can see what's happening as far as the institutions are concerned, as far as individuals are concerned. It's a question of, well, we can't trust the financial systems and the economic system as presented, and we need to ensure that we are in control of the process of our future. And it came down to the particular individual. So the individual, as you rightly say, says, oh, okay, I can't trust putting my money in the banks or directing it as far as economic policy is concerned. But what I can trust is I can build brick and mortar, and I know what's coming in, and I know what I'm getting out of it, and I have control over that.
Sure. I think I'd like to amplify it. I'd have done my industry a disservice that it's like it's not financially driven. I think it's the absolutely smartest play. Real estate is fundamentally about use. All right. If you can create something closer to utility, that's why housing does well. If it's a tuck shop where people are selling Johnny Walker, if it's bootlegged or not, if it's a trade that somebody is relying on, real estate just captures spend, right? That's why you get a shopping center along a main road, so that we get in. your good lady on her way home, she knows that she has to pick up the chicken at X, Y, and Z to do it, and you've created the opportunity. She's working, she's got disposable income. You need to put a till in front of her. That till needs to stand on the floor in an area that is air conditioned and what have you. So, and we want to have the best proposition to attract as much money to move over it. Hence the saying money is moving, because real estate attracts economic activity. Nobody builds stuff unless you're a drug dealer buying a tower in London just to look at it and wash your money.
Well,
it's an active asset.
well.
So I want to push back a little bit to what he's saying, because you're making a financial case, and I think, globally there's this phenomenon that's, captured the world's imagination, and, recently it was at an all-time high, north of 120,000 Bitcoin, right? And it's motivated by the same kind of reasoning that we've been discussing here, which is basically distrust of institutions and government. Because as notwithstanding that we call the US dollar a hard currency, over 20 years it loses more than 60% of its value, right? So Bitcoin, there's now the value of Bitcoin outstanding is now north of 2 trillion, right? It's like 10% of the value of all the gold that's ever been mined, right? So it's certainly, whether or not you believe it's a scam or it has any value, the truth of the matter is that it's not going away, and if anything, more and more people believe in it. And if you look at the return over the last 5, 10, 20 years, it's outperformed gold, it's outperformed global equities, it's outperformed property. So if we're talking just in general in terms of capital allocation, right? And I'll share a fun fact about Bitcoin. So every Bitcoin is divisible into units called satoshis, right? So each Bitcoin is equivalent to 100 million of these. And so at the current price, I think one Satoshi is about 0.12 cents. So anybody can afford to get some exposure to Bitcoin, whether it's $5 worth, $10 worth, $100, like whatever your capacity is, it's actually quite accessible. Whereas property has certain minimum ticket sizes. Like, so even in, the cheapest stand, where land is cheapest in Zim, you're probably going to have to part with a few $1,000s, right? And the liquidity as well is not the same as something like Bitcoin.
So he and I love that you touch on this, and this actually allows us to get into the property market, the real estate market more specifically, because what he's saying is, because it's a financial play, I should be able, it should be divisible. I should be able to get into the play without needing to be out there with naked exposure. And what I've seen with the property development or the real estate market is everybody thinks they're a developer. Everybody and their grandma thinks they're a developer. And all the pension funds, they think they're developers, and they're getting in and they're developing. And yet you do have, to his point, you have REITs that are listed that you can, with a few $100s, you can buy and
get exposure. Yeah, they're fungible, they're liquid.
We're not seeing this the level of attraction, because everybody thinks they're a property developer. What's actually happening within the property market? Why does everybody think they're a property developer and don't see it as so I like the idea of property, but there are people who are very good at it, and I'm better off investing in these people that are very good at it.
Whoa, so we're now becoming psychologists to the market.
It's called Friday Drinks for a reason.
Cool. Our addiction, a good buddy of mine, his handle on Twitter is Property Addict. Our addiction to this asset class is a trauma response, because it's the net residue. Everything else has evaporated away. Our pensions, our deposits, our equities. I mean, look at the IPEX statement. Equities is 26% of pension fund holding. Chasara chabata value. We've chafed the wheat Chafed the wheat. We have chafed the wheat. We have separated
the wheat from the
Johnny Walker.
Yes. Let's blame
Johnny Walker.
Blame it on the blonde. Blame it on the blonde.
Right? And what remains is property. Then, on an accessibility point of view, how many Zimbabweans, educated as we believe and love to think that we are, can walk up
I
and
now
say,
think that's modern mythology about how educated we are.
walk up and say, "Oh, I'm going to start a company and I'm going to start this thing up." But munwese anechido mumoyo make utichi ndichatenga property. So there's an accessibility point of view. Then there's the mechanics of it. Dude, I can't compete with the complexity, the scale, the capital setup, the science of running a brewery. I can't. That's not me. But I can buy a house in Warren Park, and I can add another 2 rooms, indeed 8 lodges. I can do that. It's within my experience, it's within my realm of influence, and it's something tactical and tangible that I can do off my balance sheet. So where we end up being, property is accessible, it is familiar to us, and if you look at the family Zamboma and Zambo anemari kudara, mdaranga bottle store, hotera, general grocery, those guys use real estate, and then they started buying properties. There was a Barika situation, so they ended up with a portfolio, and then the family trust ended up with like property was like, oh wow. Then the subdivision thing started happening, and there was a bit of equity release. You can keep half the asset, but now wakubata kakesh. So we have got addicted to something that's familiar, accessible, and then bring on the magic. The Zim's jet in the past 20 years is get a mortgage from cabs. Because Zimbabwe was Zimbabwe, and it's happened twice. So it's not just my lifetime. It's happened twice in my lifetime. The guy who had the guts to go and hit his money, and we saw the announcement last week that Deposit Protection Corporation was saying people who had mortgages, we can release those mortgages now. The dude who got his title deed free and clear back on a 150,000 property, I bet my bottom dollar that property is worth 200,000-300,000, and it is free money. He's going to flog it. He didn't take any additional risk. He didn't put any additional capital. So on free money, when you were burning the last $5 in 2008, 2009 to say cabs torai mari ndakutora title deed, azvimbo fa zvakaitika futi izvozvo. And I'm not saying we're a gambling nation, but most world of sport will tell you that we are.
Patterns,
that if you can see a jet to do it, rova ipap. Apana Zimbabwe and Arnold kutura chikwerete, because in his heart,
when he said Barika, I was gonna say he's annoying our feminist fans, and then it just hit me that we actually don't have any feminist fans.
I shall not justify that with any response.
It's a social structure. I'm not commenting, condoning.
Gentlemen,
I'm noting it.
Let's focus. So Harare Master Plan, 2025 to 2045. You know, I had time to read, and then at some point I got bored, so I used AI to just
get a summary.
To get a summary, not just a summary, like to say, okay, what are the main points? What are they trying to say? And it had great difficulties in actually coming to terms with what Harare is actually trying to say. So I thought, you know what, on Friday we're going to have Kura. So maybe he might have an idea of what Harare, our city fathers, are actually trying to say. Could you tell us in a nutshell, what are they trying to say with this master plan?
Okay. On public record, I am hugely grateful that we now have publicly available, digitally accessible documents. All right. You would know that I used to hold a public office in this country, and I had 150.
You worked for government?
I worked for NASA.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not really public office, but anyway.
It's a public office, my guy. It's a public office. And when you say, I want to do a meaningful, impactful project that's worthy of a pension fund, right? Mm-hmm. That if you want to focus your mind and say, I'm going to drop 20 million bucks on a site, and you don't know where the roads are going, you don't know what the town planning can be, or what is the synergistic plan for the city, you are in hell. because you're now gambling and you're taking small little bets without a strategic vision. So kudos to the Ministry of Local Government for whipping the chain, cracking the whip and getting guys to produce these documents. It's a starting point, right? And as citizens, our role, as much as we bitch and moan about a terrible road being Churchill Road and it's not surfaced, and only 32% of our roads in Harare from that master plan document are in a reasonable condition. So 67% zakadagwa. But if we start, we've now got data to analyze and a baseline to set to say, okay, what is our guiding ambition? What do we want to do? Where are we putting what? How does this relate to each other? And that's the only way cities grow and expand and are.
So what are they actually saying, the city fathers?
They've stated a declaration, stop nonsense, right? Let us, and I'm hugely grateful that the quote I always say is that atinga tongwe muna 2025 nema rules akanyorwa nema revisions 1967 town planning schemes in the ghetto.
Are they going to change the laws? The bylaws.
So this is a big feast that we're serving up. They're at least saying, here's a menu. Come to the table and let us reimagine Padapa, what are we having for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? And they can't fix it all in one go. It can't be prescriptive. But somebody has to put a stake in the ground and have a driving aspiration.
What's that stake in the ground? I don't see it.
That we're an integrated city and we have a vision and a plan to address our ailments.
We've always been an integrated city. We've always had. In fact, I would say the Rhodesian plan is far better than what we're currently seeing.
Of course it would be, because it was an exclusive little enclave of 200,000 white people. Let's go to Lake Mac. I'm not sure what its current name is.
There was order
Lake
and there was
Chihota.
structure.
Yeah, please pass the blonde.
But now we don't have order, we don't have structure. We had the minister coming in and blocking new developments.
Let's be careful. He said there's chaos. And if there's chaos, I want some time to put order. A 90-day moratorium. Let's not continue the chaos. Let's just take a moment. Let's breathe and see what we can do. I would have loved some advance notice. I would have loved an expert panel, and then for him to announce and say, look, just as they've done with the Harare City Commission, to say, these are the terms and conditions. This is what we're looking at, and this is what the remedy is going to be. But it is within his powers, and somebody is exercising. We cannot have 3 million people Tinasha Muka today and Adao Gadziramota Nigimu Garden Market. Next door, Rufaro wants to run a butchery, and we have to have an orderly city, and an orderly city requires the energy of
who is approving the disorder? Because you know what you're doing.
But you are creating the disorder.
You know what you're doing. There are people who are professional developers that have been going on with their business and have done things by the law, by the book, right? And then you give this blanket stop. And you've got financial markets who are watching and saying, well, if this is possible, a guy can just wake up in the morning and just decide that he's going to stop everything for 90 days. Well, I'm not the one who's engendering this disorder. I'm actually doing things properly.
Okay.
And I've got funds that are dedicated into this thing, and this thing takes years. You know this. I've been planning, and it's been taking years, and now we're at the point where we're lodging our application with the city fathers. Then suddenly there's this stop. And there's a guy who's an investor sitting in Australia, sitting in London, and he's asking, so what happened? You're like, well, some guy just woke up one morning and just decided everything is going to stop.
No, I will never subscribe to that kind of propaganda.
I agree that there's disorder, and that disorder is coming from somewhere. But why are you punishing the good guys?
Okay, I'm not worrying about Tom in Australia. I'm worrying about Tafadzwa in Tafara. Tafadzwa in Tafara needs to get his hand on a piece of property. If he needs to get his hand on a piece of property, chitsotsi chirikuitwa ma urban councils where you're taking school sites in a cabal. That's wrong. We've got to stop that.
But that has nothing to do with me who's doing things properly.
And if you've got your permit and it was done before the 90 days, I don't know why you're panicking that this 90 days is now representative of the whole system. We have processes.
You're introducing uncertainty. You're introducing missing the same thing that you were saying about the stock market. The reason why people no longer go into the stock market is because you had this arbitrary, judgments being made by individuals. So the investors then decided, well, okay, if you can arbitrarily stop the market or do whatever, what guarantees do we have that this is not going to happen again? So yeah, sure, this time it's 90 days, but what if in the future it's 2 years? That is exactly what happened with Old Mutual.
Tin man. Let's be in the kitchen. You and I are going to serve an omelette. We're going to have to break some eggs to get that omelette served. If you look at the level of development that is happening, that has not been stopped. If you look at the words of the minister, and I haven't come here to be his apologist, it is a moratorium on new applications for change of use and densification. He is under pressure. Densification is in the Zimbabwe Human Settlements Policy document. It is in the council minutes. It is in every local development plan. That choo-choo trade is running and coming at all of us. He's saying, Ndipeo karum kekufema.
Kura, the minute that people knew that you were coming, they raised these issues, and this issue is being raised by proper developers.
I'm not challenging that.
So these are proper developers who are saying this is an issue for us.
Okay.
Not just one, not just two,
okay,
but a number of big developers who are saying this is an issue.
The 100 million that's in the pipeline and it's got PA status is unaffected. You put in your application, you got it. And it's there. No one is undoing rights.
The idea is that somebody can just do this.
But that's what happened when you were creating.
You know what you're doing. Let's take food lovers as an example. So the security guard finds a thief in Food Lovers, and then closes the entire store and says, "You know what? I need to deal with this particular thief." And he's gonna close the store for the next 2 weeks because there's this thief that we must deal with.
In the tiny fraction of change of use applications, it is not the core business of Cleveland House to do that. 80% of us are running around doing what we need to do. And if you notice in the moratorium, it is by the exception of the minister. If there's something that you need to get done and it is not conflicting,
you need to go to the minister.
Oh, they are. Wow. We have administrative. What do you guys want? Okay, you want chaos. Okay, let's let the free market reign. Let's drive on the left-hand side and the right-hand side of the road because you felt like it. No. Don't let anybody come in and stand and say traffic flows. You should do X, Y, and Z. We're trying to create long-term value. To create long-term value, you have to take a pause. It wasn't done in the best way. No, it was not done in the best way. Can it be done better? Sure, it can be better. But if we as the citizens are not investing in participating in a process to say the future in the Zimbabwe we envision is like this, if we're not doing that and we're sitting complaining, sipping whiskey and saying they shouldn't have done that,
so I want to find out where
we're going to stay in chaos. And when things crumble around and the sewer pipes burst in front of your house, Muzandi shades.
I want to find out where you sit philosophically, because for me, the idea that some central figure gets to sit and think about all of Harare and dream up a vision and then put it out there and say, you know what, guys, this is where we're all going. You know, it to me, it's the antithesis of, you know, my libertarian ethos. I think that we're much better off, you know, where I think this is where we were in the 80s, where you had all these municipalities that were responsible for suburbs, and they decided, you know, what the rates were and how they're going to maintain the roads and the lighting and all of that, and it worked.
For whose benefit?
For the benefit of the residents, and I believe that that's actually the way forward, to actually empower people who live in townships or suburbs or whatever the case is to make decisions about what they want their future to look like. Like, why should some guy in Ivory Tower, you know,
who calls himself a town planner,
be deciding the fate of the future of Bindura, Budiriro and Grayston Park? Like, the guy obviously doesn't live in both neighborhoods. He's got no idea what the lived experience is. Why is this one individual and his team planning everybody's future?
Because that's what government is. That we, the collective, surrender our administrative power to. There's a document before you. Please interrogate the document. Please see the gift that is in that document. Please.
There's a gift in there?
Please understand.
Okay, let's go into the details.
If you own a house yawakasirwa na sukuru wako in Nationary with 300 square meters ground, you have 600 square meters of developable space because it says in townships you can now develop 2 stories. That is for free. That's creating capital. That's reducing the backlog. So that's giving you and I an opportunity to make $400 a month, and you can't see that.
Yeah, but who gets to decide it's 2 stories, not 3 or 4?
And a city does not.
On what basis?
It's not you and I individually. It has to collect, and this is an engagement process. It's been put out. It's a written statement. Read it, engage, make submissions, and then we go forward.
Okay,
Don't blame the guy who's trying to tame the animals in the circus.
We're saying that. Wow, that's actually a very good analogy. The sense that we get is this guy has no idea that he is actually a circus.
Wow. Do you know his background? Do you know what he's built in his personal capacity?
Well, that's
and I don't want to personalize it, but
that's the thing, that he should be able to do that in his personal capacity, but not for everybody, because we're all different.
Let's go make our own currency. Let's go register ourselves as doctors.
No, what we're saying is the demands and needs of Budiriro are far different from the demands and needs of Chitungwiza. And you can't say a guy who sits in Harare City Council is now deciding that the demands and needs of Borrowdale and the demands and needs of Budiriro and everyone else. He's not a supercomputer.
But it's a city, and that guy is sitting.
What we're saying is that guy, the best thing that guy could have done for everybody is to decentralize. To say the master plan for 2020 to 2014 is that what we're actually getting from the city is not enough. That the city cannot develop your own little local suburbs, your neighborhoods. We can't, as a city, we can't anymore. We can't even provide the infrastructure. And I was going to get into the details. We can't even provide the infrastructure. And the way we are going, because of all this hyperinflationary trauma that we talked about, and what we see in the market, that people can be empowered, is we're decentralizing, and we're saying, Budiriro as a community, decide what you guys want. And if you want to invest in the water infrastructure, your own dam as Budiriro, we as a city are going to allow you to do so. That's what we expected. Not for him to decide that, actually, I know what's best for everybody.
But that's why they're called city fathers. That's why it's called a city plan. That's why it's a cohesive element. A city is not Budiriro. A city is from Mount Hampton in the north to Harare South.
As a city council, you have failed. And what is actually happening is, especially when you look at the infrastructure, is that the demands in 2045, the number of people who would have doubled. There is no way the city council, especially because our debt markets are dead, there is no way the city council can provide that infrastructure.
Sure.
But there's something that you say that was quite fundamental around hyperinflation and the trauma, and that it has actually empowered people, because people are like, you know what, I think we can develop. And if the city fathers were to empower these individuals in their local communities and say, you know what, if Borrowdale wants to come up with its own water reticulation system, they should be able to do so.
There you go.
They should be able to do so. And we as city fathers are blessing them and saying, please do. No. Because what it means is the pressure is no longer on the city itself. The pressure is now decentralized. If Budiriro can come up with a solution, if Warren Park can come up with a solution, very well, go ahead, do it.
Tinashe.
That's what actually happens in Rwanda.
If we don't take care of everybody, the poor will eat the rich. If you want to leave Borrowdale Brook residents, tarring the road from Borrowdale Road down Carrie, I think it is, or Crow Hill, to their gate, if that's the Zimbabwe you think we can all invest in, because if we want to leave little Dzivara Sekwa solving little Dzivara Sekwa's water issues, you've missed the whole point of a city. Let's give up. Let's go and live in a village, and then you can be Chief Tinashe where you want to be in your network.
I want to push back from a different angle.
Let's aggregate resources and direction and impact.
You might be able to convince them. Let's try it again.
So you guys have been using this expression conversation, and I find it quite remarkable. You've been describing city fathers, right?
Very paternalistic.
and if you actually look at the outcomes over the last certainly 15, 20 years, I would call them deadbeat fathers. They've failed miserably over the last 15, 20 years. If you look at the state of the roads, if you look at the... they failed, right? That's just the reality, right? So why not empower people who actually have skin in the game, who want to improve things, right? And you said something quite interesting about the poor eating the rich. This has never happened anywhere in the world, by the way. But
ask Marie Antoinette.
Well,
ask the Russian Revolution. Ask the Great Leap Forward. Ask anybody what happens when T.A. Morris said.
But the Bolsheviks weren't actually poor. Like Lenin wasn't poor. but anyway, we can go into that rabbit hole.
Let's come back to the deadbeat fathers.
And you can do it in a way where if you empower the richer neighborhoods and suburbs to make their own decisions and contribute, to the extent that you have poorer neighborhoods that don't have capacity or have limited capacity, then you allocate, because if you think about the Ministry of Local Government, it's got a budget, right? But Borrowdale can operate autonomously without any state assistance, right? Maybe a poorer neighborhood can't, right? So you say, hey, you know what, guys? We don't need any of your limited budget. We can sort ourselves out. Just apply all of your limited budget to those guys over there. And if you need us to chip in, right, sure. We're happy to chip in and help those guys so that they don't come and eat us. Right? But let us run our suburbs and neighbors to the extent that we're competent and we have capacity, right? I think that's a much better solution because these guys
can oversee as a regulator.
These guys have been deadbeat for 20 years.
I think pointing fingers and looking in the rearview mirrors doesn't take us forward. I think if somebody is given a vision for a plan, let's rally around that. Now, the kind of thinking that you're suggesting, Rufaro, is, I think, retrogressive. We develop things better together. I'll take you to a ride, we'll have drinks in Rosebank, right? Rosebank will have 10 owners, right? And one parking lot in front of it, right? You will be moving from Game into Woolies, have a chicken at Four Nose, cross the road into Hyper. They take a precinct approach. A precinct approach is, yes, this is my little patch. It's very different to, let's take Borrowdale, for example. Village Walk, Yakabagotsi to Sam Levy Village. Sam Levy Village, Yakabagotsi to what's going on behind the offices and the new Eco Bank. Guys are taking, this is my title deed, this is my stand, this is my investment, and doing what you're suggesting. I'll provide power, I'll put boreholes, I will provide, and we're thinking small. The network effect of 3 million people living here needs some central planning, and it needs some above the mechanical. And it cannot be a means-tested thing. But just because you and I can put solar and inverters and drill a borehole, then we're okay, so you don't need to talk to us. There have to be rules because that water is a national resource for all of us. And if somebody's not overseeing it, we're missing a beat.
Well, we're saying they should act as a regulator.
That's what they're doing.
No, they're planning for everybody.
They take our rates and then they decide. And unfortunately, it's just not enough. But anyway, let's get into the details.
Smaller. You're thinking as a Borrowdalian, not as a Hararian. Please think of as a Hararian who has Borrowdale and Budiriro and everything in between.
Okay, let's get into the details of the master plan. So, vertical densification and visibility. Given that flats and clusters currently represent only 4% of the building types, the target for significant vertical densification, is that actually realistic? What measures are they putting in place in terms of infrastructure? Because the minute you say you're going up, you're increasing the strain on the infrastructure. And the city council does not have the money to increase the infrastructure. So, well and good, they want Budiriro or Mbare to go, double story, but the infrastructure is simply not there.
So, national housing policy states off-site infrastructure is a national liability. So the government's supposed to do it. If it can't do it, when they grant me rights to do a development, they give me a development permit, Clause 13 says, and you need to tap into bulk infrastructure. So what does a developer do? A developer will probably collaborate and pull sewer. So the classic example, everybody thought there was something in the air along Edinburgh Road in Pomona or Venona. Mm-hmm. Village Walk, to be able to develop, had to chuck sewer from where it is there in Borrowdale Road all the way down Edinburgh, kunorasira sewer into the flay that is by the Alps, where Alps starts there. Mm-hmm. The private sector, and this gives us super expensive Zimbabwean property because the private sector has to pay for those facilities. So for them to sell a Village Walk, for them to develop the flats, Zana Kondev and the people who've built along that road, Oxprop and the guys, they had to chip into the infrastructure. That provision of infrastructure has done what? It has relieved the burden on the council. Is it right? Is it wrong? There was $1 to be made. There was margin to be made by the developers doing it. So let the developers play and generate the excess that goes into who? To Budiriro. Because we can't leave Budiriro to do what it does, because that was a horrible apartheid abortion concentration of black people over there, and they were never supposed to be provided those services. Now, what did we do? We have to then cross-subsidize, and that cross-subsidy has to be done on a central plan basis, or else we are going to have the VXs running over the Honda Fits, and we're not going to have a city that works.
Let's try this in a different way, because you've actually brought out the issue of developers, and we've got some really good developers. Do you have a problem with the developer saying, City Council, run an open tender, whoever wins the open tender, and must have the funding to do so, can go into Budiriro and says, I will develop the infrastructure, and the rates will come to me directly. Do you have a problem with a developer saying that to the city fathers?
On a micro scale, I'd have a problem because it's not going to cash flow particularly well.
No, that's not your issue.
I'm a citizen of
No, on principle. What's your view on principle?
On my principle.
On the principle, a developer says, you know what, guys, I've worked out the numbers. If the city council allows me to build going up in Budiriro, I've worked out the numbers for the next 25 years. It is sustainable. Just give me Budiriro, and I will build the bulk infrastructure to the specifications that you want as city council. I will do it.
I would say that's smart financing, and let's do that. And I would say that let us do it on a national basis, on a PPP basis, and we're doing it at scale. Let's not solve little problems of Hatcliffe for Hatcliffe.
It's to solve it. Oh, okay, so what we know is to solve the infrastructure problems in Zimbabwe, we need about $100 billion. It's just never going to happen.
I don't.
No one's going to write us a check.
I can't accept.
No one's going to write a check.
It's going to be bite-sized, and it's going to be appropriate,
and we're saying
and
that
it must be equitable and sustainable.
Bite-sized, just like what you just said to us about Village Walk, just one road, is that if you did that for Budiriro, for Borrowdale, for Avondale, if you broke it down to the servers, there are developers who will be ready and willing to do so on one condition, that the rates from, if it's Avondale, the rates from Avondale will come directly to Murapata and Co.
Are you familiar with the details of the Plumtree Mutare Road project?
Yeah, a toll road,
that was done
a
by
concession.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what are the chances that we would have managed to do that without the private sector?
Dololo.
Exactly.
Sure. That's always
so we've got a national government that is not paying TBs on maturity. So, this idea that they're going to come to the party with infrastructure development to the tune of 100 billion sounds like a pipe dream. I mean, they could hardly put $1 billion on the table today.
So I hear that. So let's just take it a larger state developed by a certain individual in Mount Pleasant. You were given these stands and you said, okay, guys, we're going to put a fence around Manuatenga stands, Isaima roads. We're going to put a levy at $10. Kutipawena Wudu at the gate. Contributions? So the thing goes to rack and ruin. We are not great in an ungoverned section or title. Look at the avenues. You'll find 4 stories and the roof is burnt because nobody thought to collectively ensure so that the loss of one is shared by the many. So what about top floor desrake. Then if you go into complexes that don't have in a homeowners association a funded levy, we're not generating the revenue to do that. So let's not try and fix the problems by pushing it onto the private sector. Let's inculcate that, and let's have a mechanism that splits the risk, and it does not put us in the situation that the rich can own infrastructure and be able, for in perpetuity, a Thames Water situation in London to toll us forever. And then once you've given them a monopoly, they can double, triple, and control the water you and I drink and the air that we breathe.
But the regulator is there to protect the people, right? But so if it's a monopoly, they don't behave badly.
You've got the minister, you've got the council, but let's get into the details.
We're shouting at the minister
CBD,
saying he's a godfather and he's a this and
as a policy, so he can come in as a referee. We're quite happy with that, right? And then let the private sector, let the animal spirits of the private sector develop the city.
And the private sector are these altruistic angels who do wonderful work.
No.
And maintain everything beautifully.
It's profit driven.
Yes.
It is absolutely
if we distill that to its natural conclusion, the answer to that is yes. The private sector is not altruistic, but produces the most altruistic outcomes. So on paper, socialists are altruistic, but they produce poverty and deprivation.
Okay, let's get into our CBD renewal strategy. With the CBD experiencing, and this is actually coming from the master plan, 60% office vacancy rate, and I can attest to this. We've got offices in the city center. We're seeing lots of people moving out, and we can see why people are moving out. I love the city center. I love cities. I love London. I love New York. I love Joburg. I just love the feel of cities. I can't understand why people want to build their head offices outside of the city center, but I can understand why they're leaving the city center, because it's been abandoned by the city fathers, deadbeat fathers, as Rufaro says. But we've got a 60% office vacancy rate, and major businesses are relocating. What specific incentives and policies does the master plan actually propose to attract commercial reinvestment back in the city center? I didn't see anything that's tangible. And as somebody who has offices in the city center, I didn't see anything that really attracts me back into the city center, that I can tell my friends, Rufaro, that, hey, why don't you come back to the city center? I think this is what the city fathers are saying. Our deadbeat fathers are finally no longer deadbeat. This is what they're saying. Maybe you can just help us. What's the master plan actually saying about CBD renewal? And have you been in the CBD lately? It's horrendous what's actually happening in the CBD.
I thank you for giving me my opinion of what the CBD should be. It's a place of opportunity. All right. Nature, any crop matures, decays, or matures, harvests, then decays. Right. So CBD was built when you had United passenger bus services taking people in maroon and cream buses in and out of the city from Ruzende Street or Market Square. We've changed. We're in the Honda Fit economy. Those buildings are tired. They're exhausted. I'm grateful that people like the NRZ, Contribute Pension Fund, took the guts and said, no, let's create Revitas. Let us change the narrative. Let's push this thing forward. The city needs to breathe deeply, and I'm on record. What they're doing with the parking is just shooting yourself in the foot. You've made a horrendous place that, for fear, $60 hurts me, bruh. So if I've gone in to collect a branded mug in Galaxy Mall and I come out and I get clamped, that's a $60 transaction.
Do you know where Galaxy Mall is?
No.
What used to be Barbers.
My gosh.
Yeah. So Ntombo town. So I was in Cape Town last month, where the city improvement districts are saying, as you in your guys' language, The deadbeat fathers ain't getting us there, right? But as collective, as owners between these 20 blocks, we want to upgrade the street lights. We want to put in new cleaners. We want to put in new security guards over and above what we're paying you guys in rates and taxes for us to fund that. That is your commercial self-interest taking a view. Then you create that opportunity for uplift. And where there's an opportunity for uplift, where there's a gap, people are going to take that space up. If we could repurpose the CBD for large-scale residential, yes, we've got infrastructure challenges right now. If you've gone up 10 stories and you've converted Robinson House into flats, I think we could fill that thing up 3 times over with the demand.
I thought they would say that in the master plan. They didn't.
How detailed? It's already 718 pages, dog. So you've got to throw it, and you've got to have those highfalutin statements. We see ourselves, and they contextualized it, and they said, what does Joburg do well? What does Nairobi do well? What does Bujumbura do well? What were their winning aspirations? And then how do we articulate that for ourselves? So in short, Harare, dude, just say, if you, I'm stealing from SARS in South Africa, if you invest in a building, you will get a 20% depreciation allowance. So it's capital, but you're depreciating it.
That's right? What I actually expected to see.
So, fantastic.
I didn't see that.
Zimra, I have things to say. Then incentivize and say, guys, if you are taking deadbeat space, or if you're taking dead space, we can give you a rates holiday. Cost them diddly squat, because they ain't getting nothing now. But say, put in an expanded ZimWorks, put in an arts center, do a Maboneng from Joburg in city of Harare. There are thousands of ideas that us beloved Zimbabweans can throw at them. But
I actually, because you bring out some really good points, and I was expecting to see that, and then what I saw was somebody who was a bit convoluted, and somebody who actually didn't understand their powers, because they were talking about special economic zones. I was like, actually, that's the minister's role. You're not gonna be able to give us that. You know, that is a higher office, and I just felt like they actually don't understand.
Okay.
You know, where they start and where they
graduate with a PhD, but your first submission is at kindergarten school. We'll get kindergarten, we'll grade to first grade, second grade, and get to the PhD.
Housing supply and demand mismatch. Again, it's something that they spoke about. I don't know if it was just rhetoric or it was real. With a housing backlog exceeding 300,000 and the absence of council-led housing scheme over the last 25 years, they have a goal of actually developing 50,000 affordable units. I mean, how's that going to happen? We know that they don't have money. We know that the city doesn't have the infrastructure to develop, and yet they haven't done anything in the last 25 years. Now they tell us that they're going to build 50,000.
I believe the language states to avail housing opportunities in partnership and a mix of housing, from social housing to affordable housing. So they're looking to crowd developers in. The ministers.
What does that even mean, social housing? Okay. Isn't all housing social? Like,
okay. So in your capitalist world, imagine a triangle.
Yeah.
At the apex of the triangle, there is the I can fund. I work at Mimosa. I get a US dollar mortgage from Stanbic, and I can build my own house, and I can put my solar and all the rest of it. So I'm self-sufficient. Underneath that, we're going to have the employed, and the employed can get a call it a government. The government. If you're a civil servant, you get a housing allowance. So that's another tier. It's beneath the top tier, but it's here. Then there's a gap of the guy Nomas. He doesn't have a bank statement, doesn't have a permanent address, and the system where you operate in with a Building Society Act that still requires a 25% funding, the guy can't access funding. So as a society, those who are wanting some sort of sustainability and equitability over time, you say there is a need, because people, if we keep on pushing them out to Zivarasekwa or past Tafara, we're creating an inefficient city. So social housing tackles the two big things. Either somebody doesn't have the money to build it themselves, so you have a capital subsidy to reduce the cost of it, or you've built it and it's a fixed price, and then you have to subsidize the income of the person who's coming inside there. So you reduce the rent. This happens, rent control in New York. This happens, you can create
And it works where it's been tried.
it's part of the housing mix. It's not perfect, but social housing is, if you maintain a capitalistic narrow view, you're going to get sharp edges at you, but you can say, what can we do? And there's a fantastic book, Property by Rowan Moore, and he talks about the legislative and policy impacts that you can have to create a society of homeowners or provide housing accommodation. These young ones who are coming up now in South Africa, the first-time home buyer is now 40 years old. The young ones from 20 leaving varsity to 40, but you can blame them and say they're having a life and all the rest of it, but it's an affordability issue. But they still need to be accommodated because there is value in being close to where you work and being able to add value to society and not lose 30% of your wages, giving it to the combi guy driving you 30 Ks from Zivarasekwa through town to get to a lot.
Next one, because we are running out of time.
Yep.
Infrastructure investment. And this one, it made me cry. Like literally.
You cry sometimes? This happens?
Yeah, when something like this, because I realized that we're out of our depth. And if we don't do something in Harare, we're going to have a big problem. And we need to make this very clear to everybody. Because, again, it was clearly enunciated in the document. So they say that our water demand projection will be approximately 1.3 million liters a day by 2045. Do you know where we are currently?
No.
We're half of that. And we don't even supply. The infrastructure cannot even supply and sustain half of that. And then what's actually going to happen is, if our demand is going to double, and there's no way we are investing in the infrastructure. So literally, because the infrastructure that we currently have was driven by the Rhodesians, and it's coming to the end of life now, and demand will be double by 2045. And our deadbeat fathers are nowhere near able to have a rejuvenation or to build new infrastructure. So literally, we need to strip down all the infrastructure that we have and build new infrastructure, double what we currently have. It's just not going to happen.
Okay, so let's give up. Let's close Harare. Let's all go home and go boo-hoo-hoo into our beer. Or we can read the document and say, oh, what are the alternatives? They're looking at a water pipeline to come into the city of Harare. Did you know that...
Let's privatize.
Did you know that Boko in Botswana has gone from Botswana to Lesotho to pull water from Lesotho to Botswana? That's thinking. That's being creative. That's my boy. We have to outthink our problems. We have to outthink the legacy that we were left as you...
You don't want to privatize. We're saying privatize. If you privatize
at scale,
I can
but
see...
I'm not... that was his first question. He says, would I have a problem with it? No, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Okay.
But that privatization, you can never divorce your responsibilities. You can outsource actions,
do you think we'll be able to get the 1.3 thousand milliliters a day by 2045? Do you think that that's possible?
It's an aspiration. I'm not a technician.
No, this is not an aspiration. This is the demand. So when they look at the water consumption at the moment, we are at around 700 milliliters, million liters a day currently, but we can't. That's the demand, but we can't even meet that demand because our infrastructure is just not there. Then they say, okay, let's focus what's going to happen in 2045, and they're saying the demand is going to double. The demand is going to double.
So let's create the Bernie platform.
The infrastructure is coming to end of life. That's why it made me cry, because I realized that actually it's just not going to happen.
So that's why we should not have a mindset that says, let's let Epworth, Munwese, Achere, Borani at the front and a long drop at the back. It's saying, how do we aggregate all of this to create an attractive instrument? And let's go to the financial markets. Not a tender for Tinashe and Rufaro Consulting. Let us make it a national project on a national scale. And once we've got ourselves right, we can attract international money. The money for REITs in infrastructure in Africa boggles the mind. That is the biggest dripping roast that's sitting there. That if we can get that one right, I'm a keke for all of us.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't find that as distressful as you do, because I think the demand number to begin with is based on a particular price that is set by a bureaucrat, not the market. Right. So if you actually wanted to figure out what water demand was, in reality, you want a market price for water. right? Then that will give you a sense for what actual demand is. And so if you then project future demand, and in a free market, if the price is right, the supply will come online, right? The challenges we have,
if you allow the private sector to do
exactly
the job.
this idea that you have the deadbeat fathers in charge of water supply.
Where has the unfettered free market ever delivered
France.
a free society?
Oh,
We have no homeless people in France. We have no people crossing the channel.
Water reticulation and supply is private.
Because they stole our money. That's colonial money that was built to use infrastructure.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a direct subsidy. That's what the whole thing was about.
you should come back to the show, and we must go into a rabbit hole.
We'll talk about
this
that.
infrastructure.
I think what we want to talk about is how the city fathers will not be able to deliver on their plan. It's quite clear, and as far as we're concerned as analysts, we don't think
How do you live like that, bro? How do you live with that as a framework?
we live with reality. We interface with reality. The deadbeat fathers aren't meeting their current obligations. So if those obligations double, like why would they meet those?
So we've said, and I'm invested, I'm a shareholder, I'm a rates payer, all right? These are the problems. This is what we need to do. Let's get on and do it. Let's get on and do it. Then when you try to get on with it, the doing is now being interrupted.
What we're saying to the city fathers is very simple and straightforward. And maybe that's how we can just end this. Is we're saying using their own plan, it's just never going to happen. In fact, we'll have more problems. But we're saying that if they empower us, if they empower us, right, we will do the job.
That's the beauty of the document. Right. It's inviting you to participate. Own your city. This is your democracy. This is your country.
Nowhere did they talk about privatization. Nowhere did they talk about decentralization.
So they're not using the language you were expecting. That's what you were saying.
No,
so why have you given up your agency?
That's the language that the market expects.
Oh, not everybody. And you can't put that on everybody.
That's the language that the market
expects. Your view.
And if we look at what happened with the capital markets, is if you don't speak that language, money will run away. And unfortunately, what we're seeing with our city fathers, and it's quite unfortunate that we put you on the hot spot, but we did that deliberately because I think you've got a voice to the deadbeat fathers.
Wow. But you will never.
So you can go and tell them that the market is mad. This is what the market is saying. This is what the developers are saying. Our voice, this is not our voice. These are developers. This is what the market is saying, and we found you as the go between us and the city fathers.
Okay.
Okay. And we're saying to the city fathers, this plan that they think they have, actually the market doesn't believe them at all. Now, you understand them, and you understand their language. And we are hoping that at least you can speak to them, and you can start developing a plan that the market can believe in.
And that's where we've started. There's a document. Critique it. See for yourself the opportunities for that Adam Smith invisible hand to get going, right? Mm-hmm. While you're doing that, you're creating the jobs and the upside that we can then create the surpluses that funds all of this. I never accept the number Zimra has a revenue of 7 billion. It's never a revenue of 7 billion. It's a reallocation from you and I and our resources. Mm-hmm. If we don't own this thing, if we do not take our legacy creation on that was given with us, the sovereignty and those wonderful colors and that bird on the flag as ours, and take active participation and criticize and poo-poo and call them deadbeat fathers, then we've killed our own bloodline and we're crushing our dreams. Let us lift our heads up high and proud and shout and scream and talk and nyengerera and suggest and fund roadshows and study tours. This stuff is never new. Cities have evolved over 2,000 years. There's so much for us to learn and there's so much for us to implement, but it's going to take our enthusiasm, our exercise of imagination to get on board and do that. And my hand is up. I'd love to do that. That's what we're here for, and that's what we're about. So I'm not criticizing you. I'm seeing you and the mindsets that are pervasive. Let's do better, guys. Let's put hands together. Let's move forward. Let's believe. Let's try, and let's expend energy.
And on that very positive
Optimistic,
note,
yes,
and
I like
optimistic
it.
note, I
Cheers
think we
to
can
that.
end. And
Just jumping up and down.
thank you very much for coming, Kura.
And it's all good.
We can actually complain to you. We would not do the same with our city fathers. But
why not? They're not gods that bestride this narrow
I
world.
think that maybe you don't understand the role that you play. You understand this better. They don't understand the market. And I think that's perhaps the role that you can play.
Okay.
To say, you know what, this is what the market is saying, but maybe this is the way we can perhaps meet. And this is perhaps the way we can adjust the plan and develop it even further. We do want to develop the plan better.
Okay.
I'm really excited about the CBD renewal. Like I said, for the last 12 years, I've remained in the city center, and I think we are always going to be the city center.
Amen.
But we can see the
You're a
problem.
masochist.
Yeah, there's that too. There's a bit of that as well.
You're a capitalist. If you can get space at $5 a square meter to run a digital business and export to the rest of the world, be it a call center, be it an engineering support services, be
makes
it
a
an
lot of
IT bit,
sense.
do it, bruh.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, but it doesn't make a lot of sense when you can see the deterioration in the infrastructure, when you can see what is happening with the informal sector, and you can see that the city fathers are out of their depth. But like I said, I think that's your role. Your role is to say, you know what, because you've been part of the market, so you understand it, and you've been part of, the NASAs and
So
these guys. You understand them better.
I'm grateful
So
that
you can bridge
other
that gap.
Zimbabweans, and there's an association, the Property Developers Association of Zimbabwe, to ventilate, articulate, argue, present, conscientize, all of that. So it's not micro efforts that are going to add up. This is our country, brah. Let's build it, brah.
No, definitely. So on that optimistic note, and please, let's continue talking about this. This is the only way we develop our city and our country. And thank you very much, Kura. I thoroughly enjoyed this. You speak like a politician, eh? He does, eh?
It does.
I have no aspiration ever. I love net present values. I love money in my bank account. I love highest and best use. That's all I'm about. More real estate in more people's hands making money. That's me. Politics.
You're missing your calling, my brother.
Yeah.
Or maybe become a pastor.
Praise God, pass the money.
Thank you very much. Have yourself a wonderful evening and a wonderful weekend. Cheers.
Good people.